Breaking news. Welcome to today's headlines. Victory for Nnamdi Kanu's lawyer reviews what will happen if Buhari refuses to obey UN's call to release him. Victory for Nnamdi Kanu. As lawyer reviews what will happen if Buhari refuses to obey UN's call to release him. To my dear listeners from wherever you're listening from, please stay tuned as I read today's news. Nnamdi Kanu's lawyers finally reviewed what will happen if the Buhari government refuses to obey the UN order to release the IPOB leader Nnamdi Kanu. Aloy Ejimako, who serves as the special counsel for Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB has issued a stern warning to the Buhari government that his refusal of the order made by the United Nations Human Rights Council working group may result to a nasty diplomatic conflict. He emphasized that such a diplomatic crisis had a consequence that could make Nigeria a pariah state. It is important to know that the United Nations had earlier instructed that the Buhari government should stop the continued detention of Kanu without due process. The Nigerian government was ordered by the UN working group to free the IPOB and compensate him for violating his human rights. Meanwhile, in response to the UN order, Ejimako emphasized that Nigeria is required to abide by the decision that was made by the UN working group. He said the United Nations working group on arbitrary detention is a quasi-judicial body that has a subsisting legal mandate of the United Nations to consider and adjudicate human rights petitions against member nations of the UN. Its rulings or decisions, diplomatically called opinions, such as was recently issued in favor of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, are legally binding on Nigeria on myriad grounds, including the fact that the decision is based on the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, both of which Nigeria ratified several decades ago. Ratification is a means by which a nation makes itself subject to international laws and treaties, and by the provisions of Section 12 of the Nigerian Constitution and the plethora of decisions by the Supreme Court of Nigeria, ratification makes Nigeria subject to whatever it ratified. It needs to be made clear that the UN Working Group is an integral arm of the United Nations Human Rights Council, which has the broader UN mandate to determine human rights issues emanating from member nations of the UN. Therefore, as a member of the United Nations, Nigeria is subject to decisions issued from these UN bodies. It will be recalled that the UN body recently considered Nnamdi Kanu's matter and held that the removal of Mr. Kanu from Kenya amounted to extraordinary rendition. In clarification, the body further held that Mr. Kanu's arrest and transfer to Nigeria lacked a legal basis and due processes of law in violation of Article 9 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and Article 9 of the Covenant. In its conclusions, the UN body held that the appropriate remedy would be for the government of Nigeria to release Mr. Kanu immediately and accord him an enforceable right to compensation by international law. Without more, Nigeria is duty bound to implement this decision in its letter and spirit, and it is expected to do so promptly and, within 6 months, file a formal report of its implementation with the United Nations. Unarguably, failing to implement this decision would mean that Nigeria is thumbing its nose at the United Nations and unwittingly triggering a nasty diplomatic conflict that could make it a pariah state. Nnamdi Kanu's lawyers finally reviewed what will happen if the Buhari government refuses to obey the UN order to release IPOB leader Nnamdi Kanu. Now we've come to the end of our today's news. Please do drop by at the comment section and let's know what your view is all about.